Alright, we haven't really handled Zeitgeist and the Venus Project very much in the last few months, but we just came across their the Z Movement's activist orientation guide a few weeks ago, and so we've been studying that and looking through it, and we're going to do a quick video or two on our problems with the activist orientation guide for the Zeitgeist movement. Before we begin this, since we've been dealing with a lot of books lately, I'd just like to promote this book, Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, or Hazlitt, depending on how you pronounce it, Hazlitt. You can look this online. It's available in, it's a very short book, concise lessons, available like an ebook, PDF, whatever. It's very easy to find. Everybody actually needs to read this book. Having said that, the activist orientation guide. It was on, I believe it was divided into about 5 chapters, and it seems that the first 3 were on economics. And it was a hell of a thing to read, because Fresco doesn't really, he doesn't keep his story straight, he doesn't keep his terms straight. He'll often use, he'll say one thing, pull up some theory of value, for example, use it to support his claim, and then debunk the theory of value, and after he already used it to support his claim. And we took a lot of notes, and it really gets confusing after a while, so we're not going to deal with everything that we have to say about this, but we're just going to touch on a couple little of the major points to get through. Anything?
So, well, primarily our problem with Project Venus isn't particularly focused on Project Venus per se. I mean, if the idea of a world where a supercomputer does actually know what's right for the whole entire world, like there's only one way that's actually right, and the computer could actually somehow douse that, then good for you, I guess. And if that one computer can, through always knowing what's right, provide the best way to do everything, and everybody has infinite of everything they want in whatever fantasy land or Project Venus you want to call it, good. I don't know. I mean, it sounds fun to me too. I mean, it's like when a Jehovah's Witness walks up to me and says, "Hey, don't you want to, live forever? Don't you want a place where animals, tigers play with lambs, and black people sit with white people, and everyone lives forever, and your grandmas and your grandpa and your great-grandfather are all there too, forever," then that's good. I'm not against that idea. There's nothing wrong with those ideas. What are wrong with those ideas are the premises that you have to accept in order to basically follow that idea, to basically jump on board with that idea. And I don't think a lot of people really considered. I don't think a lot of you guys have really considered what you're really swallowing in this sugar-coated pill. The premises that you're basically having to accept in order to believe in Fresco's vision of the future. And one of the primary premises, touching on the economic angle, first of all, we could go on for hours on the faulty premises of this guy, but economically, his primary fallacy is what's called the zero-sum fallacy. The idea that the whole entire planet has a finite amount of wealth. It's sometimes called the one pie theory. The idea that all of the planet is actually just one gigantic pie of wealth. And so the only way that you can gain is if someone else loses. That's called, the zero-sum fallacy. You can't gain unless someone else loses. And that's the perspective that Fresco has. And he says stuff like how, in a monetary system, in a capitalist system, you can't be honest. Because, if you're honest, then you'll be outcompeted by, man goes into your store, says, "Hey, how's this lamp?" You're like, "Oh, well, the lamp next door is much better." Then you'll end up poor, apparently, to Fresco. Because you have to lie in order to be competitive. I know plenty of honest people. I don't know, this guy grew up in New York during a really bad period, so he probably has a really different perspective of humanity than I do. But I think that you could be honest, and I think that there are ways of exchanging and doing business where you could actually not have a zero sum, where one person increases wealth and the other person loses wealth. There are actually plenty of ways where both people actually end up gaining.
Yeah, and Let me share with you a subjective value theory, real quick. I have two books here. Selected works by Karl Marx and F. Engels. Let's pretend Johnny is a communist. Okay, actually, no, I have In Socialism by Ludwig von Mises. Ludwig von Mises, by the way, is not a socialist. This is a critical review of socialism. Von Mises was an Austrian economist. So, let's say I'm partial to the Austrian school, and I have this book, The Selected Works of Marx and Engels. Johnny, the communist, has this book called Socialism by von Mises, and both of us are a little disappointed that we bought this book.
Because I thought that it was going to be a book on socialism.
Yeah.
But it's actually a book on more about socialism than I care to think about.
Yeah, and I'm a little disappointed because, after I got this book, I found out that Marx was a commie. So I say to Johnny, hey man, I got this book here. Like, it seems like something you'd be interested in. And Johnny says, oh yeah, well, I got this book, and I think this is something you'd be interested in. So it's like, you want to do a trade-off? Okay, so we've traded. The commie has his Marx book, and the Austrian enthusiast has his von Mises book. What we've done is we have actually both profited from this exchange. There was no bad manipulation. There was no exploitation here. We actually have both profited from this exchange.
Right before your eyes, wealth was created, literally. Whereas we both had, with our original configuration, me having that book that was opposed to socialism, and me being an ardent socialist, for this example, and Jeff being a Austrian economist and not having the proper book, we had something that was worthless to our individual perspectives.
Yeah, I mean,
some of the value of the system between us was actually worthless amounts of book existed subjectively due to who had them. Whereas when we exchanged them,
we profited. Yeah, I mean, essentially what we had was doorstops. All right?
I was just about to burn my book.
Yeah, and that's cool too. Burning stuff. I mean, that's certainly value.
I'm a socialist.
Yeah, so you do like to burn books.
That's always what I do.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Fresco seems to adhere to a outdated theory of value. Now, he calls this the theory of value, which is in all caps.
It makes it seem like it's authoritative, like there's only one theory, and that's something that is really manipulative about this guy, is that he pretends that the world's a lot more simple than it really is. He has this convenient form of oversimplification that he applies to everything.
Fresco subscribes to the Marxist labor theory of value. It's false. It's been proven false. All right, and we actually just proved it false. I mean, part of it anyway. I mean, I guess the labor theory says that something is value. The value of something. I guess the money value of something is pretty much the amount of labor that goes into it.
Well, he doesn't go very much farther than that.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He takes into account scarcity. He says that the measurement of value equals the objective scarcity of the item on Earth and the amount of labor that was put into the item in order for it to be produced. Yeah, that's the perspective if you're God, or if you own everything on the planet. But to an individual, the value of an object is however much that object fits into his game plan, however much he can use that object, however much that object provides efficiency into whatever his intention is.
How much time do we have?
We're at 8:47, I think.
Cool.
So that's the whole adoption of that angle, that very convenient perspective that everything only has value when you take into consideration only two factors, and that's scarcity and that's labor, the amount of labor that's put into it, is a very convenient perspective that he adopts. And then he goes in and does basically, he beats the hell out of that straw man.
Yeah, and then later he proves it false somehow. To support a different idea of his. So he's all over the map with that one. Now let's just cut this and start the next one.
Okay.
All right, continuing my refutation of Jacques Fresco's ideas. And by the way, I know that the activist orientation guide had had the names of Fresco, Peter Joseph, and that wife of his at the bottom. But this is clearly just Jacques Fresco's work. I mean, they added their names to it, but this is obviously Fresco, so I'm not going to have that argument. I say it's Fresco, and if you disagree, whatever. You know what I mean. All right. At some point, I think it may have been chapter 2 or chapter 4 or something, he started talking about distorted value. Now, distorted value means something completely different than what Fresco said. I have a feeling that Fresco flipped through a couple economic textbooks and found some clever words and gave them his own meaning. And also, he turned on the television and watched Ron Paul, and Ron Paul said some stuff, and so Fresco copied what Ron Paul said, but he completely missed the point. Anyway, back to distorted value. Apparently, according to Fresco, if I have a shirt on, let's say, that has an advertisement on it, and I paid yeah, you got an advertisement, Ron Paul, yeah, and I paid money for it, more money for it than, let's say, just a normal shirt. I've committed some, I've got a corrupt sense of, value, pretty much. I've got a distorted value somehow. I don't know. He didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's basically what he said. And that since this brand I have on my shirt, doesn't have any utility on it, I'm guilty of distorted values. I'm going to refute that now. All right. I have this book, Human Action, by Ludwig von Mises. All right. Now, this is a book. I think it has value, even though Fresco would probably argue that it has no intrinsic value. I mean, it's just paper and crap. But, I think it has some cool it's got words in it, and it's got some cool ideas. I read, but what I used this book for a few weeks ago, I just said it here, and we did our show, and it stayed here as a prompt. And what I was doing, it was actually more of an advertisement, sort of like how some people wear Nike on their shirt, or whatever. I actually used this book as an advertisement to say, hey, everyone out there, if you can recognize this book, then you know what my values are, and so, hey, what's up? And I actually got a response. Someone
like a Masonic,
yeah, a Masonic hand sign, and I got a response. So this, at one point, was a book. It had its utility as a book, but then I used it as an advertisement. And I made a connection with someone, a like-minded person as myself, by using it as an advertisement. And, is that a distorted value now? I mean, I achieved the ends that I wanted. It seems it had value to me. So that's my refutation of Fresco and his distorted values.
Well, Fresco basically plays it as if he has this kind of, what's the Archimedean perspective? It's a God's point perspective, the ability to see the whole entire world at a glimpse. And he's speaking from like the perspective of some kind of fourth party, omniscient entity that can judge the true value of an object. And he'll say certain things have intrinsic value and other things don't have intrinsic value. And those are based off of what he calls his natural laws.
Jesus.
So he creates natural laws whereby we could actually determine what has or has not value. And so he says that it's all objective. And he has to say it's subjective, because he has to say that it's objective because it's obviously subjective, and he has to say the exact opposite in order to basically strike first. And that way we're on the defense. We're like, hey, no, that's subjective. He's like, no, I said that. It was objective first. And other people are like, yeah, it's subjective. What do you mean? He says that value is according to this basically very dated perspective on the ability of an object to, I guess, be scarce, and the ability of an object to require human labor to exist. That's all value. That's all, I guess, as far as value, he assigns an object value according to those two factors. He says that gold has no inherent, quote, value. And then he'll say stuff that appeals to, the bleeding hearts and basically the mother and everybody, I guess, that, things like food and clothing have value, because everyone needs food and clothing and everything, Obviously. I mean, there's a billion ways to get there, though. But, yeah, those things have value according to his, quote, natural laws. So you kind of start seeing that value to this man has a lot less to do with what's, quote, objective, and it has a lot more to do with his very particular worldview that he crafted over 90 years of isolation. And this guy isn't peer-reviewed at all, as far as he's called a scientist, by the way. And he created this worldview where he now has a definition of value for himself. And he can now go around claiming that certain things have value and certain things don't have value. And ultimately what it is things that don't fit within his worldview, he considers, quote, irrelevant and having no value. And, or unnatural or something. And so far as he doesn't understand Jeff's use of this book as an advertisement in order to basically communicate a certain ideal to the planet in order to attract like-minded people, so much as that's an invisible, kind of somewhat of an invisible effect that's happening, and only those who are in the know are privy to it, he would assign no value to it because he doesn't get it. And so much as anything that he doesn't get exists, it has no value to the man. And it doesn't, because it doesn't fit into his worldview of what the way the whole entire world should work. And that's twisted. that's really fucked up. I mean, the whole entire notion of like respect for others is respect for other people's particular senses of values. I mean, what you are what you value. It's like your whole entire life is dictated by your ultimate wants. Everybody is born with a very particular set of wants. Just like the same way, like, you place a stem cell somewhere inside your body, and it'll kind of figure out what to do based off of how it finds a way to fit into its environment, and either it becomes a heart cell or it becomes something else, right? But you respect it. You let it do what it wants to do in its own world, in its own little community, If I think that gold has value, and people in my community think that gold has value, it has value. Because it's all based off of basically what we call the jury of the local environment, the local community. We all think this has value, therefore it has value. And if you live, 5,000 miles away and you don't consider gold valuable, and
so don't trade in gold with us.
Well, yeah, and then we're both right, is the point. It's that gold has value to me, and it doesn't have value to you. There is no, quote, objective value. It's all based off just what you want to do.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to live in a technotopia, and so gold has a way of being untarnishing. You literally have gold like wiring that'll work forever because it doesn't tarnish, it doesn't weather. It's always gold and it always conducts electricity. So if I wanted to build a technotopia, like a technopolis, a city of computers, I would like to use a lot of gold. And the fact that there isn't one standard for the value of gold, and the fact that your community 5,000 miles away doesn't value gold, actually makes the whole entire thing work much better.
Yeah, because then you can trade us your
exactly.
gold. And we can both profit. No exploitation, we both profit.
And that's the point, is that everybody should have their own particular self-perceived destinies, where they want to achieve an ultimate end for themselves, and the people around them should help them facilitate it. And one of the means that they help people facilitate certain things is through the exchange of money. If I have a certain requirement of a particular metal, and I can't find it, then what I could do is I could put out a bulletin somewhere where it says, hey, I need gold because I want to build a technopolis, And then someone else says, hey, we don't like gold, but we have 5,000 pounds of it. And I'm like, oh, well, here's two possibilities. Either we barter, as in like, okay, so what do you want? Oh, we like, in our city, we like weed. That's all we like. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't have weed. So now I have to run through some kind of weird, like Grand Theft Auto sort of an errand where I go downtown and talk to, like, I guess...
Weed dealer.
Weed dealer Bobby, whatever his name is. Yeah, and I have to get hella weed in order to send a bunch of weed through Phexia so you can send your gold my way. Or we could have a very common form of communication called paper, where by me working and by me basically achieving a certain form of production, we create a means of exchange through the lowest common denominator called money. The fact that we all accept this thing is tradable and has very, non-specific value, and it only exists not so much as it is as has an ability to produce an effect, but it only exists in the ability to maintain value in itself. I can now send you a shitload of money, and I don't have to go through all the trouble, and you send me your 20 pounds or whatever the hell of gold. And so that works, right? That works really well in terms of efficiency. But the ultimate side effect that occurs with money is actually something we're going to get into in the next chapter, because there's a lot more significance going on here. In the way that evolution happened from what was called the barter system, or just hunter and gathering system, to the bartering system, to whatever the heck, and then we got money. There was actually another dimension of something that was happening all the while that a lot of people don't touch upon, and it was explored by early 19th century economists that are literally just completely blacked out in our history books. So we'll get into that more next. So I brought up the scenario of exchanging cash for gold, because your community doesn't like gold. I need gold because I want to build a technotopia. You need weed because you want to live in, I guess, Rasta land or whatever. And so I send you a shitload of money, and now you have a shitload of money, and you could find a way to buy weed with it very easily, right? Ultimately, what happened here was that we saved time. The process of actually taking a third-party abstract idea, a abstract idea, and giving it a particular, and grounding it in reality. There's an abstract idea that we call value, right? Value is something that exists in common between everything that would otherwise be bartered. As opposed to saying that a shovel is a shoveler and a chicken is a chickener, they both have something in common, in that they both have value in the ability to produce, the ability to achieve ends, the ability to do what you want to do. So the fact that we noted that between everything that exists, there's something called value, we write that down, we make a system where we could actually exchange value per se, value in itself, via a monetary system. And that system would actually work perfectly, because what it does is it saves everyone's time, and what's more valuable to anyone's life than time, right? I mean, what's more like, there's two ways that you could extend your life. You could either live to 200, or you could waste 50% less time throughout your life. Either way, you actually end up living to 200 or living twice as long. So what happens with the exchange of time, exchange of value, is that oftentimes other people get involved. Other people want to take control of this third thing, this abstract notion of what's called value. And those things are called governments, and those things are called banks, the Federal Reserve. The ability for me and Jeff to contract each other's services, Jeff is a good bassist, and I'm good at, shooting people, whatever. The ability for me and Jeff to hire one another is based off of our ability to reliably make agreements with one another. So long as we could actually make an agreement with one another to do whatever we need to do, both of our ends are accomplished, and value increases. Jeff needs me to take, I shouldn't have used that example, to hunt deer. Someone. Yeah, it's fun. To kill someone that wants to kill him and his family, an evil rapist, Yeah, so I provide that useful service to Jeff, and Jeff, plays bass.
Serenades you with bass.
Yeah, and plays for my wife, and my wife is very happy, and I get lucky that night, And so we both have more valuable experiences due to the fact that we did this mutual exchange. That's freedom. Freedom is the ability to do exchange with whoever the hell you want. Slavery is the inability to exchange your services, your time, exchange with whoever the hell you want. Slavery is when there's a third-party influence that prevents you from interchanging with other people, or hampers your ability, suppresses your ability to interchange with other people. Slavery could be seen as, like taxation. The ability for the government to create a basis tax, so that now Jeff has to charge everyone a lot more because bases are taxed by the government specifically, makes Jeff gives Jeff a much harder time surviving in the system, and that's called tyranny. So now, as opposed to Jeff just doing this free exchange with me through the use of a common currency, a lowest common denominator currency, Jeff has to work twice as hard due to this third-party influence, in Washington D.C. or the Federal Reserve, that's making Jeff's life, a pain in the ass to exist because of the agenda of the federal government or of the Federal Reserve to have a monopoly on bases, to destroy, the base from the, world of music, because they don't like bass for some reason. So the existence of money is what facilitates interdependent exchange between two people. The degree by which a third party is involved, has to be involved. The degree in which this exchange between me and Jeff must involve a third party that determines anything, that causes any sort of a change in my ability to exchange with Jeff freely, is tyranny. The degree by which that exists is the degree of tyranny that exists in the system. So the problem with the world, the problem with slavery and all that, is because there is always more third-party intervention than is necessary. As institutions prop up, institutions are collectivistic in themselves. They often, as institutions are, realize, they build these towers, they start gathering members and followers, and these followers come in and they worship the institution, or they climb up the institution, whatever. They become collectivist because that's what an institution is. And so institutions will then create collectivist systems, because if you're raised through an institution, you're going to expect the world to be very much like an institution. So once you go out into the free world, you're going to kind of want it to be comfortable like an institution. It's like it's like those African tribes in Africa where they were able to fight off the Dutch that enslaved half of them, and then what did they do? 10 years later, they enslaved the half of them that were enslaved before, because they were familiar with the system of slavery. They didn't know anything else. So I'm kind of getting off track here. We have 4 minutes.
Cool.
But the way we solve this problem is by getting rid of third-party intervention in free trade. The degree that third-party intervention exists in the system is a degree of tyranny, slavery, badness, and it's also the degree of basically time wasted, everything, The fact that everybody in the United States has to pay a federal income tax, literally 5 months out of your whole entire year, 100% of your earnings, for 5 freaking months out of your whole entire year goes to the Federal Reserve. If it wasn't for the fact that the Federal Reserve is this fraud that through the media has convinced us that they're all perfectly normal and everything's acceptable, we would all live 5 months longer, because we'd all have 5 months more free time. You could actually have 5 months of just no work, free time, if it wasn't for the Federal Reserve taking that money and sending it to the bond makers. This is what we need to target. We don't want some machine intervening in our ability to exchange because it will do so more wisely or more smart in order to increase efficiency. We want to reduce the overwhelming amount of inefficiency that actually exists. The things that we can easily target, the things that everyone basically is already opposed to, like the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, this is essentially what progress is. Cutting out the inefficiency.
Mm-hmm. Saving time. Because everyone has more time, and everyone has the ability to make more progress in fulfilling their independent destinies, doing whatever they want to do themselves. And if everyone had more time, everyone would be more available to solve each other's problems. There'd be a lot more free interchange. You'd have more industry. You'd have more happiness. You'd have less war. And that's the whole entire purpose.
I can sidetrack on the efficiency thing.
Go on.
All right. This is a little bit, I guess, you'll have to read the activist orientation guide a few times to pick this out. But Fresco's basic idea on how to eliminate value, or so he says, it's not a solid argument, but this is what he says, is that if there's an abundance of something, basically enough to where everyone can be satisfied, almost infinite abundance, then something will be worthless, or say have no value. Fresco says have no value. I'd say it's worth something. But anyway, that's pretty much his idea, is to create abundance. But at the same time, he's talking about, the most efficient usage of things, of technology, of resources, efficient use, most intelligent use of resources.
The dome is the most efficient use of space.
Bullshit. But anyway, you can't, these two ideas, the, elimination of scarcity with abundance and efficient uses of resources are, they completely contradict each other. If you have so much of something that it's worthless, then obviously you've got a lot more than you need. All right, that's called waste. Waste is what Fresco complains about. This is what he's talking about getting rid of. And yet, at the same time, he's talking about eliminating scarcity by making so much of something that it's fucking worthless. That's stupid. All right, I got that one.
We have 2 more minutes. Actually,
Let's
1
do
minute.
another one.
Okay. Coming up next, Guns and Barns.
All right, continuing. Fresco, at some point in the activist orientation guide, started knocking interest as if it was a waste. I don't actually remember what he said about it, but he basically said that it was, I don't know, useless or wasteful or something like that. You can find it. I'm not misrepresenting him. He thinks that interest is wrong. Here's the thing, though. Time is a factor in value. All right, it could be said that it's the lowest common denominator. Yeah, in an equation.
Star school thought.
Yeah, but let's look at this. I'm not going to write out an equation in the air, but let's pretend that we have something that's like a chair. All right, a chair that'll last forever. Let's say. All right, this chair, costs money. Let's say $200. All right, this chair will last forever, right? So, would it be worth more to me if I got this chair today, or I got this chair 20 years from now? Let's say I have 60 years to live, more years to live. That chair would be worth more to me now because I could use it for the next 60 years. I could get that much utility out of it. It would be that much more valuable for me if I were able to use it for 60 years, more valuable than if I were only able to use it for 40 years. Now, if somebody wanted to use that, chair for 20 years and say, give it to me after that, I would say no. I want the chair for 60 years. I mean, I'm losing, I'm losing value. It's devaluing my existence. My existence is that much less plentiful, whatever, if I don't have that chair for the next 60 years, which I already bought. So he says, well, I'll tell you what if I give you $40? I say, $40. To me, that $40, maybe it would be worth it, like I could get the chair eventually, and I've got an extra $40. Hey, what's up with that? That's interest right there. It gives me, it pretty much, I guess it makes me interested in delaying gratification. That's how I remember it in my head what interest is. And it's the same way with an investment. If someone says, "Hey man, I got this idea. I want to make this city that's like circular and it fulfills everyone's needs. Solar power and stuff like that. But it's going to take some time, and I need some money. Because I got to buy equipment to do this." I would say, really? Well, what do you want from me? He said, I want to borrow some money. I say, okay, well, I want to use my money. Why should I lend you money? Well, says, Fresco, I'll pay you 12% interest, so I'll borrow your money and I'll pay you money, for borrowing your money. I say, well, okay, sure. I'll delay gratification. I'll part with some of my money for a little while, and I'll get some interest for it. That's
I'll delay some of my progress so you can make progress.
Yeah, because with that money, I could be making my own project. I could be making my own city, but I say, no. Okay, Fresco, you can have a bit of my money, and I won't build my city, and I'll just wait. I'll do other things with the amount of money I have.
It's kind of like, fisherman needs string, and so I give him my shirt. Now I'm cold, so that he could fish. He was using the thread from my shirt, so now we can both have fish, but I'm cold. But I was willing to give him the string so for some fish. It's pretty obvious, pretty common sense.
Yeah, all of this is really common sense. Seriously, the only people who don't understand this are like economists. All right, for some reason this is common sense to everyone. Everyone should know this, but for some reason economists are always like 100 or 200 years behind the curve. Except for the Austrian economists, they're always right.
And economists that are like maybe really old.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, generally they're pretty okay. The ones that are really old that haven't basically been professors, basically, the more time there is between you and an institution, the more free you become. The more free your mind becomes, the more efficient you become, the more clear the world looks to you, you know? And that goes back into another perspective, you know? This whole entire thing is basically attacking us for what institutions do, you know? Corporations pollute, institutions cause, you know, homogeneity, institutions basically, you know, hoard wealth and all that, you know? And so what they want to do is they want to basically centralize the whole entire planet. And they want to, as far as I can see, from people who have messaged us, they want to eliminate variety among the followers of Fresco. You know, it's like, if someone may give us a message that, you know, it's if everybody just drove the same exact car, then there wouldn't be any envy. You know, there wouldn't be any greed or something like that. And that goes back to another point that we made in another video, I think, is that you can't eliminate envy and greed.
Yeah, and who the fuck cares about your car? I don't care about cars.
I don't either.
Let someone else be envious. I don't give a fuck.
Don't hold me accountable for other people's bullshit, you know? Let's presume that there are actually better people out there than what we see on television, you know?
Yeah.
And the whole idea of, I guess, this world without scarcity is basically just completely material-centric. It's a world that's only pandering to people who really want, like, flying space cars and want to be able to fucking, like, I guess have as much food as they want, and they want to have, I guess, whatever neat toy that comes out next.
They get subsistence and toys.
They get subsistence and whatever toy they could dream of, you know? But among people who aren't particularly materialist, they don't really give a fuck about flying cars and shit.
Yeah, you realize have a good book.
Yeah. Or you'd rather just basically have the ability to create things on your own, some independence. The same reason why, as a kid, you want to create a fucking treehouse, and you want to have, you know, your own treehouse where you have your own buddies, and just be left alone, and just do your own thing. Just literally create your own world and have your own world, and you know, it's fun. That's what human beings are naturally all about, you know. That's why everybody likes to get into gardening, and if you don't like getting gardening, you find some other way to fucking basically sublimate your gardening need, and you play Sims or play Warcraft or something, which is basically a form of gardening, you know? You're going through and you're just checking up on this character, you're taking care of him, and you're making sure that he's growing and developing, and you're getting something done, you know? That's ultimately what makes people happy, is the ability to just do something on your own and watch it develop, watch it flourish, you know? And hopefully that thing will flourish beyond you, even after you die. Yeah. That's usually what the goal is, you know? As far as the ability to have what the hell I need, you know, in terms of material possessions, I don't give a fuck. I don't need material possessions, to be honest. I mean, I basically have everything I need right here in terms of, like, I can read, you know, whatever the hell books I want. I can listen to whatever music I want, and just whatever the hell, you know, in terms of entertainment and stuff. What a person really needs is basically social networking, as in the ability to achieve his ends through finding people who are willing to help him achieve his ends, you know, and the ability for the system to provide a streamlined, I guess, method of basically social networking, like the same way that we use the internet. Jeff puts human action on that book, and we find people all across the world that respond and say, hey, man, that book's awesome, we should talk to one another. That's invaluable. The ability to network with like-minded individuals and interchange ideals within your own, I guess, little sphere of influence, and the ability to learn from whoever you want to learn from, and the ability to just interact with whoever you want to interact with, and just do your own thing. That's the most valuable thing on the planet. In this future without money, it basically is a gigantic world where you're just bribed out of fucking having no, I guess, concept of real value. I mean, if this world exists without scarcity, it implies that there is absolutely nothing that's uniquely valuable. That everything that anybody wants is theirs immediately, right? But what if I want something unique?
What if I want a $10,000 bass? Or, well, there can't be a price tag. What if I want a really good bass? You know, who am I going to get to make it?
Or even, like, not in terms of materialism. If, let's say that there's, you know, we're all like in this BNS project thingy, and we all have whatever we need. Obviously, we're still people, you know, and we still like one another. I'm presuming that we're still going to enjoy one another, and I like this, you know, this lady is an awesome singer. She has the best pipes in the world, dude. I love to hear her voice, you know, and nothing matches it. No matter what's broadcasted through whatever technology, the experience of being there in a room and having her voice reverberate around my space, you know, that is something that's infinitely valuable to me. Can I have that? I guess, is that thing, can that experience there, can she become, you know, infinitely available to me? What if she was popular to everyone else on the planet? Could she become infinitely available to every single person on the planet? Because that's what really matters. That's the actual real scarcity that really matters. It's not shit. It's not stuff. I mean, it's only if you live in like a hyper-consumer society, and that's all you're really concerned with, having like, you know, whatever space car or the heck you want to dream of in the future. Ultimately, you're going to realize that what really matters is actually people, and the ability to basically interchange time and experience with people. And that's always going to be infinitely scarce. So long as people don't have an infinite amount of patience to wait forever because, you know, of limited lifespan and, you know, because of changing worlds, then you're never going to have everything you want, and you're always going to find a way to have more of what you want, even though you can't. I need to stop it. So in finishing up my point of what I was covering last time, the significance of money is that it's the closest thing we have to a way of reliably interchanging time between individuals, of keeping track of time. The word money actually comes from the... If we didn't have the word money traditionally, we'd use the word monitor, because it's actually the same exact word, moner. It literally just means a tracking device. And it's not a tracking device like fucking, like a GPS bracelet.
It's more of an accounting device.
It's an accounting device. It's a way for us to think in a way that has a systematic efficiency to it. The same reason why we have numbers, same reason we have notation for music. The use of this money, which is actually just like a worldwide abacus, that we all have beads, and we're all just basically shoving beads back and forth with one another, and getting whatever exchange necessary, and interchanging time and services with one another. You appreciate the services of you know, person X. X appreciates, you know, the services of person Y. X works for you and is able to get in exchange a token for the amount of time he puts in to serving you. That token is then given to person Y. So then Y produces whatever, you know, person X wanted, and then person Y could then take that token and give it to you, and for whatever, you know, whatever services you can provide to person Y. And then ultimately, within the three of them, they got everything they wanted. That's complete and total freedom, and that's what life is all completely about. And everything that you think about money, I mean, not you, I mean, I don't know who's, I mean, whatever proportion of people are going to listen to this, whoever you are who think that money is all evil and everything, is all guilt by association. And it's by the same exact means that I explained before. It's because money is corruption. I mean, nowadays it is. Because we live in... Presto says that money is debt.
Bullshit.
That's a very convenient revision of history right there. That's a very convenient filtered reality. You know, like Andrew Jackson in fucking 1836, 1837, whatever the heck, he abolished the debt. He didn't abolish it with a fucking, you know, sign of a pen. He abolished it by guiding the economy out of the debt. They paid off the national debt, meaning that the nation no longer owed money to anyone else on the planet. What happened to them? Did it mean that they didn't have money anymore? Did everyone just fucking like stop working and everyone just died, and now we're just living in fucking like their imagination as they're, you know, basically like in the last moments of, you know, blood are leaving their veins? No, life goes on. Money isn't debt. That's a lie. Money is just a particular device that we all use as a lowest common denominator of exchange, and because we have a lowest common denominator of exchange, it makes exchange easier. That's my phone. But yeah, so the lie, the premise that you have to accept, all these premises that you have to accept Presto's worldview, the idea that money can only exist in the form of debt, is completely false. Between me and Jeff, if we decide to create a personal system of IOUs, we have created money, and that way, you know, we can make sure that every single week the dishes get done, or the heck of the, you know, or every single, you know, if I need to hire Jeff and I don't have the money for it, Jeff could actually give me a loan in terms of his time and say, hey, you owe me a favor. And if he wants to write that if he wants that in writing, then I'll write, yeah, I owe Jeff a favor, and I'll give him a piece of paper, and that's basically money. That is
that's
money.
not exploitive, because we've actually both got something that we want.
Exactly. And the man, okay, so exploitiveness. The only way that exploitation, exploitation, God, yeah, thank you. Exploitation occurs is through impersonal exchange. When you have a landlord in Japan and a tenant in Germany, the landlord in Japan doesn't give a fuck about the person in Germany. All he sees is a bottom line. So what happens is that he will always look to have that bottom line be as large of a sum of money as possible, because he has no personal empathy for whoever happens to be the tenant of his house in Germany. The closer you are to a free market, the less you have these institutional remote columns of power that are dishing out commands from the top down to all the grunts at the bottom, completely impersonally, the more you're going to have awful people treating each other awfully. It's because what it does is it breaks down the layer of sympathy. Between me and Jeff doing exchange with one another, the chances of us doing like heavy exploitation is fucking nil. Because he's my friend. I'm not gonna fucking rip him off, But I'm gonna rip off fucking, if I have the opportunity, I'm gonna rip off Sears.
I'll rip off Fresco.
I'll rip off Fresco. I'll rip off somebody in Canada. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. It depends on the situation. But I will not rip people off who are in my community that are interconnected with me, because I'll feel bad. I'll have to see it. I'll have to see the effects and everything. I can't escape from my negative behavior. So the reason why bad things happen, again, is not because of money. It's guilt by association. It was because of the rise of the corporation and the obsession that everyone has with institutions nowadays. And that everything has to be done through institutions. And institutions are these dry, basically Agent Smith-like societies where everything is all just coordinated and systematic, and it's all about just, achieving its results, processing via its script, pretty much. And whatever the heck, if you don't get whatever, then yeah, you're out. There's no heart, there's nothing. It's like, that's why all this corruption happens. It's because of the divorce between sympathy and activity.
And the lack of competition as well. Contrary to what Fresco believes, competition is not like war. Alright? Competition is what keeps people honest. If someone can try and sell a book for $40, someone else can sell that book for $30, the guy who sells it at the lower price is going to win out, right? And the consumer, me, is going to get a better deal. And the more people selling this book, the better deal I'm going to get, to where I can get this book at the best possible price, and they can still profit off of it.
And they'll find creative ways to do it more efficiently.
Yeah, that's progress. That's really what drives progress.
Increased efficiency is by definition progress by any extent.
Yeah, and this is exactly what drives progress, which is what Fresco wants.
And Fresco has this skewed perspective as well that we touched on earlier. That I'll tell you, if you want to start your own business and all you care about is making as much money as possible, and you just want to fucking cutthroat and you want to just do whatever the hell to just basically shake down whatever the heck walks through your door as much as possible, you're not going to be around very long. You either get killed by an angry mob. No one's going to come back to your business. You might be able to survive as some kind of weird tourist trap. But even with the internet nowadays, you'll be reported and you'll be either you'll be appreciated as some kind of a gimmick. Everyone will hate you and it'll be fun to visit you just because you're hated, or you'll be shut down because everyone will know better than to visit you. The best, quote, capitalist, and that word is a misnomer anyway. Adam Smith never even used the word capitalism. Capitalist, not even fucking like a school of thought, The best businessman is a man that dedicates his life to serve everybody around him. Because what he gains, isn't really money. What he gains is a faith of his community. And so long as everybody in the community believes in him and thinks he's a great guy, and he is doing everything he can to better serve them, they're going to keep coming back. And he's going to always be taken care of because the community loves him. And that's the way the free market works. And yeah, as far as to say that in a monetary system, no one can be honest, I think that tells you a lot more about Fresco than anyone else. It's kind of like some, I've seen like a Catholic priest or something holding up like the Ten Commandments and just saying how like without this thing, he would be, we'd all just be raping one another and killing each other and stuff. Yeah, I don't think so. I think I would have had better sense not to rape everybody, kill everybody if it wasn't for the Ten Commandments. And maybe, he doesn't. Maybe that's why he needs the Ten Commandments, whatever. Or it's kind of like, I guess, someone saying like, it's like, well, I couldn't help but to have gay thoughts because I was surrounded by naked men. That, to say something like that and to presume that everyone else is just like you, is actually really tactless. He's actually admitting a lot more about himself than anything else. I know plenty of businessmen who are very honest, and they're basically people who aren't corporate. Normal businessmen, mom and pop shops are always honest. They're always the most lovely people that just want to be helpful.
Yeah, and that's another mistake Fresco makes. He keeps on talking about corporatism, which is pretty much like government marriage with business. And he talks about all corporate crimes, and he attributes that to a monetary system and to, business in general, in exchange. No, corporatism is its own monster.
Corporatism is the opposite of capitalism.
Yeah.
The very existence of a corporation is the existence of government intervention in the free market.
Yeah.
Corporations are something that a ma and a pop, a son and his father, scrap together in their garage. They have to go through a legal process.
We should.
Anyway, yeah, we're running out of time, so. Yeah, we spent a lot of time here, so.
Until next time.